Hello, this is Unsigned with GameLeap, and in today's video, we're going to be going over the patch 13.20 leaks. I've played League of Legends for 10 years. This patch looks like one of the most positive patches that I have ever laid my eyes on. I am so excited for this, and you should be too. League of Legends might be saved. As we all know, League is incredibly snowbally right now. It feels terrible to get behind, and a lot of the changes in this patch will alleviate those issues. It looks like the game is going to be slowed down just a little bit. The time to kill is generally going up. They're nerfing runes, they're nerfing items in the preseason, they're nerfing Drake, they're reworking Cassante. This is a beautiful patch, and I really hope that all of these changes go through to live because they honestly look amazing. Let's go ahead and get right into this. Also, if you want to learn any of the champions included in this patch note, make sure that you check out GameLeap.com by clicking on the description box below to head over to our website, where I have personally spent hundreds of hours making crash courses for basically every single champion in League of Legends. I'll see you on the site. First and foremost, Jax has received an art sustainability update. This is part 2 of his VGU. Jax has been modernized a decent amount. He looks really good. This is super cool. This, however, is not as important as what's up next. Cassante has received a full rework, so hopefully he's playable for the average player and not just locked behind pro play. As you know, Cassante is a balanced nightmare. He's one of the lowest winning top laners in the game, but in professional play, he's still seen as completely and utterly overpowered for good reason. There is minimal counterplay to his Flash EWQ3 combo. This is a guaranteed pick in just about every team fight. He scales way too hard. His early game is kind of oppressive if you're not playing one of his 3 bad matchups. So essentially what they're doing with Cassante is making him do significantly less damage. They're lowering his time to kill, and they're greatly upping his crowd control. When Cassante is actually able to touch you, which is not going to be super often since they're increasing some of his cast times, he's going to CC you for even longer, but he will not 3-shot you randomly and then survive the entire time. They have reduced his Q's base damage. They're making his Q not get as much reduction while he's in his ultimate. His W now has a minimum charge time to remove that combo that we talked about. The damage reduction is significantly increased, but Cassante is static and unable to move for a significantly longer time, and Cassante's W is quite easy to sidestep because it's so slow. They're nerfing his percent damage overall, but they're increasing the WCC duration from 0.3 minimum to 1.25 constantly, no matter how long you actually end up charging it, and they're also removing some of his resistance scaling. Cassante's ultimate is largely what makes him so inaccessible. It's hard to play Cassante when you have your ultimates on, simply due to the amount of resistances that you lose. So in order to combat this, they're making him a little bit more consistent by giving him slows and then of course the increased damage reduction. But this greatly opens up the counterplay opportunities for Cassante and makes him a more fair champion. Next up, they are buffing Milio, which is nice, and they are also nerfing Quinn significantly. This is kind of unnecessary in my opinion. Quinn is one of the highest winning top laners in the game. However, Quinn is a champion that you don't see very often. Her counters are very strong, Malphite being number 1. Due to this, I believe that she should have a higher than average win rate. Okay, this is where the patch really gets amazing. The death timers have been lowered at levels 2 through 9. The reason why this is so amazing is that the early deaths really do suck around the level 6 to 9 mark. So having a reduced timer at level 6 and at level 9 will get you back on the game and prevent it from snowballing so out of control, especially when paired with our next change. The turret plating gold has been reduced from 175 to 125. This might not seem significant, but this is probably one of the best changes that Riot has ever done. When you lose your lane, you are more likely to lose your plates than if you are roaming. The plating gold was increased to prevent people from turtling underneath their turret after the durability patch, but it's also there to punish people for roaming and just ignoring the lane phase, so champions like Katarina can't get off the ground, right? However, what this has actually done since this has been added is punish those that are incapable of interacting in the early game. If you're playing a champion like Kayle, or a scaling mid laner like Swain, or a scaling bot laner like Vayne, then you are punished incredibly hard because your opponent just simply gets a kill every single time they take a solo plate against you. You don't get a kill from just the plate gold alone, but a kill happens when you take a plate gold plus the wave, and then you of course have priority on top of that to go and do things such as Drake and Rift Herald. Rift Herald in its current state also essentially gives the person that is receiving the plates a straight up kill, and if the jungler taxes it as well, then you're receiving basically half a kill on both champions. This plate nerf is going to be one of the best changes that has ever happened to League of Legends. But when paired to the next change, snowballing is for sure receiving a sizable nerf. As you all know, the damage in League is incredibly high right now. If you fall behind, a lot of people just want to FF after like 5 minutes, right? Basically, the first team to get ahead is the one that's more likely to win, which is fine. You should be rewarded for putting the enemy team behind. However, a lot of the damage from runes and from Infernal Drake and from items right now is what contributes to people getting blown up so easily and what caused the durability patch to come come through. Riot is addressing this in the most elegant way possible with the turret plating nerf and the nerf to Drake. So basically every single Drake is receiving a percent damage nerf. So right now Drake gives 5%, it's going to give 3% in the future. The soul based damage is going up to make up for the fact that you're receiving less passive stats from it and to help you end out the game. I don't think that soul needs a buff, but for certain Drakes like Ocean Drake, this is pretty good because this is considered the worst soul, right? So Ocean Drake is giving you a 0.5% less sustain. It's giving you more health and mana when you do actually have the soul. Cloud Drake is giving you 3% less slow resist and 3% less out of combat movement speed, which is really nice. And the soul is actually receiving a buff to the movement speed, with the ult speed is completely unchanged. These are really nice changes. Cloud Drake is one of the most overpowered Drakes, but you don't really see the effects. Movement speed is without a doubt the strongest stat in League of Legends when used correctly, and this does contribute a lot to snowballing in the game. Relentless Hunter has taken a pretty decent amount in professional play. It's because movement speed is the strongest stat in the game when used effectively. So in your solo queue games, this is a great nerf to this Drake overall. Mountain Drake is also receiving 3% less on the resistances overall, and the base shield has gone up by a massive 40. This does seem like a flat buff, but this is actually a nerf because the effective HP that we get from this is greatly reduced. If you don't know what effective HP, basically your armor and MR and your total health find like a happy place where the least amount of HP is taken from you per auto attack or spell from an enemy. Mountain Drake gives you a lot of effective HP because it does give you a shield, and shields are affected by armor and MR. So a nerf to the base value on this is more significant than it seems. Hextech Drake is also giving less ability haste and attack speed. This is great because this is one of the most efficient Drakes that you can get, especially early on in the game. The gold value on this is really high, and they're bringing up the slow by an extra 5% on both melee and range. Jungle is receiving nerfs. If you have kept up with our patch videos in the past, we've kind of dipped into this a little bit. Freak has been hinting that Jungle is going to get nerfed for a long time. For good reason. Jungle has a lot of agency, but there's definitely a happy balance place for Jungle where you still feel like you're playing the game and not completely useless, right? It is common for the jungler to get constantly flamed because the game snowballs so hard right now. If your jungler isn't playing as well as the enemy jungler and they're getting no Drakes and no plates, then it's definitely felt by the entire team. This gives room for passive junglers to come back. This gives room for people that aren't really super skilled in jungle to come back, which is kind of a good thing and kind of a bad thing. You get the idea. One of the additional changes that they're putting up for jungle is that Smite can no longer be cast on lane minions or pets. This is to prevent champions from being completely neutralized by Smite. Things like Yorick, things like Ivern, Daisy, and the like. Riot really wants them to have a static power level, so they're not having to buff and nerf things around Jungle Smite, and instead they can just make the ulti as strong as it needs to be. Champion Smite has been significantly nerfed. This helps the damage creep in the game. Now assassin junglers might not one-shot you as hard, especially when paired with the reduction in runes that we're going to get into in just a moment here, and they're also nerfing the jungle pets on top of this. So Mossstopper no longer grants an series low resist, just a shield. Gustwalker gives significantly less movement speed. Scorchclaw gives less damage. If we just smite somebody, you have to attack or use an ability on somebody instead of just getting the damage. All the Doran's items are getting buffed in the early game, but they're limiting you to only one. This is a great change. If you were out of the loop, a lot of people were just rushing a component item to get their mythic as soon as possible, or even taking Futures Market. This is a problem in high elo and pro play primarily, but in lower elos this is an issue as well. If you're playing an 80 carry bot lane, a lot of the time it's better to just go like longsword plus 3 potions because the sustain is so good, largely due to the nerfs to Doran's items. This is bringing them back in line and making them more effective. Great change. Lord Dominic's Regard is also getting a nerf. This is good. LDR is far too overpowered in the current state of the game. It basically gives you the most amount of damage out of any ADC item, which is pretty unfair for tanks. This means that tanks have to be significantly tankier. Now tanks can get looked at and nerfed appropriately, so that way the time to kill goes up and the skill aggression goes up as a result as well. All of these support items are receiving buffs as they are nerfing their early game runes, and here we go. If you guys look at the total values on all these runes, they are effectively bringing up the base damage per level, but greatly reducing the bonus scaling. As you can see, Arcane Comet has a 35% bonus AD scaling on live, and it's being dropped all the way down to 10%, and then the AP ratio on Comet is going from 20% to 5%. So this is a very substantial nerf. It doesn't look like much because the base damage is going from 100 to 130, but I promise you this rune will be doing less damage overall. This means that instead of playing our rune, we're going to be playing our champion a little bit more, and our champion choice is going to matter a little bit more. This is the case for Dark Harvest, Electrocute, First Strike, Fleet Footwork, Press the Attack, Airy, Taste of Blood, and Water Walking. I imagine that things like Conquer will follow suit, but Conquer is one of the more balanced runes. It does take a lot of time to get up, and therefore should do a little bit more damage. I would imagine that we'll see a nerf to Lethal Tempo pretty soon if Riot is serious about wanting these changes to go through, but the changes to runes, the changes to Drake, the changes to jungle, and the item rework make it seem like we're receiving a slower paced League of Legends very soon here that rewards you for actually playing your champion well instead of the game snowballing out of control off of like a silly lead from Rift Herald or like a shutdown or something ridiculous like that. This is one of the most positive patches that I've ever seen in my entire time of playing League of Legends. I've been playing League since Season 3. I really hope that all these changes come through. This is a very cool preseason patch. We haven't really had a preseason that's been to this scale in a while. Not since Season 10 we've had this many changes. So if all else fails, at least the game will feel fresh and we'll get some new mechanics and new strategies added in instead of playing the same old game for forever. Anyways, this was Unsung with Game Leap. Thank you all for watching and I hope you all have a wonderful day. I'll see you in the next video.